morning and welcome back to the lecture series on performative gender and religions in South Asia. Today we are discussing Bhakti Mysticism and Poetics in the light of Tulsidas' most prominent work, Râmcaritmânas. This is in continuation from our previous lecture. So, according to Tulsidas, we see a different rendition of Rama. So, in Tulsidas's work, we see a different rendition of Rama, a different imagination of Rama, which is a continuation and yet, a metamorphosis from how Valmiki had conceived Rama as a character, the central character in his Ramayana. So, Tulsidas' Ram is a personal god, and Râmcaritmânas attempts to define the principles of the religious significance of Ram in Hindu theology. So, this is a journey of Valmiki's Ram, the Prince Ram, into becoming Lord Rama, in a quintessential part of the Bhakti tradition. By the time he becomes the hero in Râmcaritmânas, Tulsidas' Râmcaritmânas. So, Tulsi constantly reminds his reader that taking Rama's name repeatedly, roting Rama's name, allays one from all sufferings and brings peace. So, this is not possible when Rama is a human. He is no longer a human. The way he is being treated in Tulsidas' Râmcaritmânas, even taking his name, pacifies and allays so many crises in life. Tulsi brought the divine from the sacrosanct pedestal or precincts of the temple to the homes of the ordinary people, the homes of the commoners, presenting dharma as a way of life rather than as an austere religious matter. So, dharma is something that is being explained in a simple manner through ordinary instances of life by Tulsidas, something that is no longer alien to the masses. Valmiki had depicted Rama as a human being, as a Maryada Purushottam. So he is he embodies the benchmark of justice and equity in a society. That is the idea of Maryada Purushottam. He is the superlative male, and he is the epitome of Maryada or ethics. The Valmiki's Rama, and this is how we understand Rama. The portrayal of Rama is as Maryada Purushottam. On the other hand, Rama is depicted as the Purnavatar. I was talking about this in my previous lecture, I remember. Rama as Purnavatar, the complete incarnation of Lord Vishnu. By the time he is the protagonist in Tulsidas' Râmcaritmânas. So, a deification happens in a major way, deification of Valmiki's prince. So, in Ramayana, Ram acquired all his skills primarily through practice, through a certain training given by his guru, and through sheer dedication and devotion. On the other hand, in Râmcaritmânas, Rama is assumed to already possess all kinds of virtues and qualities because he is shown as the incarnation of God Vishnu himself, right? There is nothing, further or nothing more for him to learn. He is almost born as someone learned, someone omniscient. That is the essence of Purnavatar in Tulsidas' Râmcaritmânas. If a person reads Valmiki's Ramayana without any prior knowledge of Hindu mythology, she will consider Rama as a human being with all the best set of skills and virtues. In Tulsidas' work, on the other hand, the narrative is reinterpreted, reworked in the light of the bhakti or devotional movement. So, within the larger corpus or within the larger frame of Bhakti movement, Tulsidas is writing his own, understanding or his own interpretation, his own unique treatment of Ramayana. And so his characters do not remain literary characters anymore. They go on to become something much closer to the masses. They acquire two things at the same time. They are deified, and yet because they are gods of the ordinary people, they become very close to the heart of the commoners. So a very plebeian god, a god that is accessible to all, not exclusive in their nature, right? So Tulsidas transformed a prince with godlike qualities of heroism that Ram had in Valmiki's work into a full-fledged divinity, the supreme deity. He is incarnation of one of the major gods in the Hindu pantheon, which is God Vishnu. So he is not only an epitome of best qualities of heroism, compassion, and justice that Maryada Purushottam possesses, but he is a little more than that. Now, while Valmiki's Ramayana is read by a number of critics as the process of Aryanization, what does Ramayana mean? The word Ramayana means journey of Rama, right? So the process of Aryanization, Sanskritization, and agro-based expansion directed towards the southern part of India. On the other hand, we see the Bhakti movement beginning or emerging from the south, the southern part of India, and moving northward, which was characterized by a focus on the local languages, the vernaculars, the regional dialects, and thereby it made the Bhakti tradition, made teachings accessible to the widest possible audience, regardless of their class or caste origin. So these are the two very opposite trajectories that we can trace. Valmiki's Ramayana originating in the north and moving southwards, the process of Sanskritization, it is a top-bottom, one could say, movement, whereas Bhakti movement emerging among the grassroots, with the grassroots, originating in the south and moving northwards. In the process, we could say, if we may use the word infecting or kind of absorbing the flavors of the regional masses. In the process, being infected by or absorbing the colors and the flavors of the regional masses, the masses from each and every region. So the qualities of omnipotence and omniscience that Valmiki's Rama had acquired through training and disciplining became a part of self-staged divine sport or Leela in the case of Tulsi's Rama. So Tulsi's Rama being an incarnation of Vishnu, an avatar of Vishnu, always already knows the outcome of all the actions. For example, he knows the future. So he has descended in an ethereal form only to do his Leela, the self-staged divine sport, right? So making a departure from Valmiki's Ramayana, Tulsidas is also influenced by a number of other Sanskrit texts. So Valmiki's Ramayana is not the only possible influence on Tulsidas's Râmcaritmânas. We see the Bhagavad Puran probably influenced the description of Ram's childhood, right? The Bal Canto was influenced probably by the Bhagavad Puran, whereas the Prasanna Ramayana influenced a renowned scene of a romantic encounter between Ram and Sita in a fulwari or a flower garden. So different upakhyans or different cantos and chapters in Ramcharitmanas are influenced from different sources. So, another likely influence on Ramcharitmanas is the Adhyatma Ramayana, which was composed in South India around late 15th or early 16th century AD. So, Adhyatma Ramayana added a significant dimension to the theology of Rama and presented him as the Brahman of Upanishad, as well as the Advaita in the non dualist school of philosophy. So, in Adhyatma Ramayana, we see Ram beyond, the humanized traits. He is like Brahman. He precedes any kind of earthly qualities. He is the supreme one or the supreme soul. From the medieval Adhyatma Ramayana, the Uttarkand of Brahman Puran, which was authored by Veda Vyas, which had transformed Ram as the Parabrahma. Here we see that Ramcharitmanas added a popular symbol of worship to the text, and it depicted Rama as the embodiment of Dharma. So, both are treating Rama, as God, as more than human, more than a superhuman. Both have this, dimension of divinity associated with the figure of Rama. There is a deification being extended to this figure of Rama, both in Adhyatma Ramayana and in Ramcharitmanas. But Adhyatma Ramayana is, giving all the Nirgun qualities, rendering Rama with the Nirgun qualities. Whereas in Tulsidas, embodiment is very important. Ram is the embodiment of Dharma. So, for ordinary masses, once again, for the masses that are not educated, the larger populace, it is easier to identify with the latter, with Tulsidas's imagination, because it has a tactile, tangible body that one can touch, that one can see, that one can, intervene through different senses, and thereby it is a God that can be loved, a personal God. Once again, this is the concept, the moot concept in Bhakti movement, a humanized God, a personal God. In Adhyatma Ramayana, Ram is projected in terms of the Nirgun aspect. This is what I was saying, along with the Purushottam attributes of Valmiki's Ramayana. On the other hand, for Tulsidas, Ram represented the Sagun form of incarnated divinity, which manifested itself on earth to convey the message of dharma and devotion. So, apart from Rama, we see that the characterization of Sita is also changing in Ramcharitmanas when compared to Valmiki's Ramayana. Both the books, both the texts treat Sita in largely through certain qualities that are quite similar. For example, she is a pious woman. For all these authors, Sita is imagined as a pious woman, a woman that is loyally devoted to her husband, and someone that puts dharma above everything, right? So, piety, loyalty, and anuragi of dharma are some of the characteristics of Sita, both in Valmiki as well as in Tulsidas. So, there are certain aspects where Sita's character changes in Tulsidas in terms of Sita's outlook, for example. So, in Valmiki, we see that Sita has been portrayed mostly as a strong and outspoken woman, sometimes even aggressive, and someone that sees herself as an equal to her husband Rama. There is an instance in Ramayana where Ram, prior to taking Sita's Agni Pariksha, also, offers her to marry any of her brothers, because she has spent a significant time away from her. And in Ravan's kingdom, he somehow is not sure of her purity anymore, and he even offers, as one of the viable options according to him, that Sita should marry any of her brothers, any brother that she chooses to marry. And that's a point when Sita exposes her, aggressive and outspoken nature, or demeanor. She calls Rama as someone who is a non-Aryan, someone that does not bear the Aryan traits, and so he can scorn his, he can he can scoff at his wife like that, and chase her away, tell her to marry any of his brothers. It's a behavior not akin to an Aryan. So in Valmiki, we see that agency in Sita to even, scorn, to even chastise her husband when she is offering her to do something she would never imagine to do. In Ramcharitmanas, on the other hand, Sita is shown as more of a submissive, docile, reticent, and soft spoken woman. This basically stems from the role of the women in society in the 16th century, the period during which women were commonly given a subordinate position compared to the males in the society. The women during this period, during the medieval period, did not have much say in the worldly affairs, and they were largely oppressed in all fields. So Tulsidas had to portray Sita as someone submissive, contrary to her avatar that we see in Valmiki's Ramayana. Similarly, we also see that the depiction of Hanuman is quite different in the different versions of Rama's narrative, be it Ramayana or Ramcharitmanas or Adhyatma Ramayana. So, in the case of Ramayana, Valmiki's Ramayana, Hanuman is depicted as a person belonging to a specific tribe, the tribe of the Vanaras tribe, who lived in the dense Dandak forests, whereas Valmiki shows that the stronghold of the Vanaras tribe was in Kiskinda. Tulsi, on the other hand, treats Hanuman as an ocean of wisdom and virtue. He is called as the Bhushan of the Kapikul. He is the kind of the jewel. He is the jewel. He is the gem of the entire dynasty or the tribe of Vanaras. He possesses immense knowledge and wisdom as well as virtues, and he is an illuminator of all the three worlds. So he is the Hanuman god to the devotee who is at the margins of the Brahminical religious cosmos, and who cannot have direct access to the Hindu pantheon. There are people from different castes and different sects who, especially in the medieval times when Tulsi is writing, would not have access to temples. For these masses, the earthy, crude, simple nature of Hanuman god was greatly appealing. The ones that would not be allowed to worship perhaps the figure of Vishnu or even Rama inside a temple would espouse or embrace Hanuman as their god. So Hanuman has this very earthy appeal, which is embraced by the larger populace, especially in the northern part of India. Tulsidas was a great devotee of Hanuman himself. He is the composer of the greatest hymns that is dedicated to Hanuman, called the Hanuman Chalisa. Tulsi himself composed the Hanuman Chalisa. Hanuman's presence, especially in the Sundar Kand, we see alternately evokes laughter and tears. He is a very simple individual with immense physical strength, right? Unlike Ram's unattainable traits, Ram is like the veritable god, someone that cannot be identified with immediately. Hanuman, on the other hand, is identifiable to the masses, and he's, like I was saying, he's earthy and he is more accessible even by the commons. So the masses appreciate the simian simplicity, crude strength, and accidental destructiveness which Hanuman is committing again and again, right? He is, good willingly trying to do something, but in the process, there is a small error. But it makes him all the more loving. It makes him a very endearing character, someone that is so lovable. He is such a dedicated bhakt. Once again, Hanuman and Ram's relationship, evoking the dasya bhav, the purity in Hanuman's love, in unsurpassable. It cannot be met by any other, perhaps not even by Lakshman and Bharat. So this kind of simian crudeness and simplicity is appreciated by the masses, right? In fact, Hanuman is treated as an avatar of Shiva by Tulsidas, someone that was born as Pavan's son and who merges the great tradition with the little tradition. So the vernacular Ramayana was initially derided by the conservative Sanskritist quarters. The Sanskrit Pandits would deride Tulsidas for composing such a great work, such a masterpiece in vernacular. However, despite a lack of printing and overwhelming illiteracy in the contemporary society, Râmcaritmânas had found enthusiastic reception among the mercantile class as well as the lower orders of the society, including the religious mendicants who had this tendency to rote certain lines and sing them. The singing wandering minstrels, it found a lot of popularity among these sections of the society. So Nabadas, in his Sri Bhaktamal, hails Tulsi as a reincarnation of Valmiki himself, who was born to reissue another version of Ramayana. So the legend that the Brahmins of Vanaras had put Râmcaritmânas to the test, they wanted to test Râmcaritmânas and were later forced to give it respect, goes on to show Tulsi's success at transcending the sectarian differences and, synthesizing the diverse strands of the Hindu tradition. So he was he was inspired greatly by a Sanskrit text, but to his own credit, he is making this Sanskrit work, this original Sanskrit work, Ramayana, accessible to all. So he is, a kind of synthesizing figure, a figure that synthesizes the opposites. So he is very much symptomatic of what Bhakti tradition at large is also aiming to do. In the contemporary society, there were so many kinds of sectarianism, there was prevalent feudalism. As a way of mobilizing against these malpractices, Bhakti tradition, the Bhakti poets would preach the understanding of a simple God, a God that can be loved even without or regardless of rituals and institutionalized sanctioned practices. So Tulsi was doing something similar. We see as a synthesizing figure Tulsi reconciling Shaivism with Vaishnavism through the figure of Hanuman. Hanuman himself being an avatar of Shiva as he depicts him, but also a Ram Bhakt. So we have seen in history so many tiffs, so many face-off and conflicts between the Saivites and the Vaishnavites, each claiming its own superiority. A figure like Tulsidas is coalescing these two opposite tendencies through a figure such as Hanuman. Both the Saivites and the Vaishnavites find Hanuman as acceptable. Tulsi advocates Shiva as the father of the universe, whereas he himself maintains utmost devotion to Ram, right? So there is no way of saying uh, which sect he prioritizes or gives more importance, right? He never says, he never identifies solely either with Vaishnavism or Saivism. Further, Tulsi brings together the Nirgun and the Sagun schools of thought, the traditions of a formless God and a God with physical attributes. So, Tulsi's Ram is an integral symbol. He is born as a human, but then in him we see the shadow of the Purnavatar, right? So, we are celebrating the Nirgun aspects of Purnavatar, the God, and this God cannot play, this God cannot express itself without a uh, without the mediation or without a human body. So the Sagun aspect also becomes important, right? The God's Leela becomes very important. Scores of lines from Ramcharitmanas have entered the folk speech as in the form of proverbs and wise sayings. For example, Tulsidas in Ramcharitmanas introduced the popular story of Lakshman Rekha, which was a perimeter drawn by Lakshman around the hut of Sita, inside which no earthly being or wild animal could enter and affect her. So basically, if any being, any creature tried to cross it, it would be destroyed. It was meant for absolute protection of Sita within this perimeter, the Lakshman Rekha. Now, this story of Lakshman Rekha is really popular, and it has gone on to mean something beyond this specific context. It is still used as a metaphor to signify situations where a line should not be crossed under any circumstances. So, there are parts of the Tulsidasa's oral tradition which exist as a complement to the literary corpus. Hanuman Chalisa has the opening lines and several other verses adapted from Ramcharitmanas. So, it is an offshoot. It wouldn't be wrong to say that Hanuman Chalisa is an offshoot of Ramcharitmanas. It becomes a prime text of the flourishing cult of Hanuman, one of the most visible manifestations of Hinduism, one of the most popular and plebeian manifestations of Hinduism. Ramcharitmanas's predominant meter is Chaupai. So, the most prominent meter available in Ramcharitmanas is Chaupai, which is a two-line unit containing 4 equal parts. Its individual lines are known as ardhali or half. So, Chaupai contains 2 lines. One unit of Chaupai comprises 2 lines with 4 equal parts, right? And each individual line in turn is known as ardhali or half. However, Tulsi did not always feel constrained to use the couplet or chaupai, and sometimes he would treat a single line or ardhali as an individual unit. The Ramayana that were being produced 11th century onwards were not merely translations of the original Valmiki's work, but rather, we could say that echoing with and carrying the essence of the larger bhakti tradition, some kind of authorial freedom was being assumed. So, the later versions of Ramayana were more of reinterpretation, reworking rather than mere translations of the Valmiki Ramayana. There was a greater authorial freedom in terms of treatment of the characters, and even addition or removal of the sub-narratives. Some new subplots would be added, whereas the older plots, the existing subplots, may or may not be mentioned. This is how the different authors were experimenting with Ramayana 11th century onwards. Another ornamental couplet used in Manas is called doha or couplet, with two unequal parts, and each line has a break between its two parts, right? Doha is a kind of couplet that one finds in other bhakti poets, prominently in Kabir Das and Guru Nanak. Another verse that is present in Ramcharitmanas is Harigitika Chand, right? So, Harigitika Chand, a meter of short songs to Vishnu. Now, what is the difference between the function of Chaupai and Harigitika Chand? We see that the Chaupai is more prosaic and it helps to advance the flow of the narrative. So, it has more to do with the progression of the plot, one happening after the other, one event happening after the other, that would be described more in terms of Chaupai, whereas Harigitika Chand seems to be inserted at moments of heightened emotion. It is a kind of an anomalous situation, something out of the ordinary situation. When trying to describe that, the author would deploy Harigitika Chand, heightened emotion, as a way of elaborating on something that has already been described. So, it is not enabling the plot to progress. Harigitika Chand is not a way of taking the plot or the storyline forward. Rather, it is more of an interjection, it is more about harping on certain emotions. So, we could say that its poeticality is more underlined, more accentuated. The poetic quality in Harigitika Chand is more accentuated as compared to the Chaupai, describing the prosaic advancement of the storyline. Harigitika Chands can be taken out of their context and separately set to melody and sung as devotional hymns. So, the parts of Harigitika Chand can be seen as a separate bhajan or a separate devotional hymn in its own right. A meter called Tomar Chand, similar to the Chaupai but with shorter and more strident lines, occurs twice during the battle scenes. So, the Manas's narrative keeps its audience in mind, right? And the story, the narrative goes in two forms, just like in Western narrative, we talk about the mimetic mode and the diegetic mode. In a very similar way, we have here the narration happening through two strategies. One is prasang, episodes of prasangs, and then dialogues or samvad, and they draw on the oral storytelling and inclusionary recitation traditions, right, where we have in mind, where the author Tulsi has kept in mind a participative group of audience or devotee. So, narrative, like I was saying, can progress in two ways. A prasang, where a kind of omniscient, omnipotent narrator is narrating the story, and then we have the story progressing through a dialogue between two characters within the frame of the narrative, right. Sometimes an oral discourse or upakhyan that has hardly any organic unity with the larger narrative becomes popular and self-complete in its own right. For example, we see that the discourse between Lakshman and the tribal chief Guha in book 2 is commonly known as Lakshman Gita, and it can be read separately from Tulsidas's larger text, Ramcharitmanas. It becomes a text in its own right. With this, I'm going to stop our lecture here today, and let's meet again with another round of discussions in another lecture. Thank you.